Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're going to be doing another MISSPER Makeup Monday video. This one's going to be a long one. There's a lot to get through on this one. This case though has probably been talked about on the internet like since she disappeared, so there's a lot of information out there, so that's why it's going to be a bit of a longer video. I haven't even like done my brows or anything beforehand because I know that this is going to take me ages to get through. So yeah, we're going to do the case of Maura. I keep wanting to say Moira, but it's not, it's Maura Murray. That's such a tongue tie. I mean, did the parents not think about that when they named her? Yeah, we're going to do the case of Maura Murray today. There's a lot like leading up to her disappearance that was like odd to me. Like a lot of stuff just doesn't add up. So yeah, we've got a lot to get through. I've literally got like 10 pages worth of like research on here, so it's going to be a long one. But I'm just going to get straight into it just because we've got a lot to cover. So let's get started. As usual, everything I use will be written in the description box. I'm not gonna like sit and say what products I'm using. This is already going to be a long enough video anyway without that, so everything that I use will be written in the description box below. So Maura Murray was born May 4th 1982 in Hanson, Massachusetts. She's the fourth child of Fred, we're just going to call him Fred for the video rather than Frederick, so that's long, and Laurie Murray. She's got an older brother who's also called Fred, two older sisters, Kathleen and Julie, and a younger brother called Kurt. Maura was raised in an Irish Catholic household. When she was 6, her parents divorced and Maura mostly lived with her mum after the divorce. She graduated from Whitman Hanson Regional High School, where she was a star athlete on the school's track team. She was accepted into the US Military Academy in West Point, New York, and she studied chemical engineering for 3 semesters. After her freshman year, she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, I think that's saying that right, and she studied nursing there. In November 2003, 3 months before her disappearance, Maura admitted to using a stolen credit card to order food from several restaurants, including one in Hadley, Massachusetts. The charge for using the stolen credit card was continued in December and it was dismissed after 3 months good behaviour. So if she stayed out of trouble for 3 months, they wouldn't like send her to jail or whatever, or like actually press charges basically. They were just waiting to see if she did anything else in that time, but if she didn't then they were going to let her off. On the evening of February the 5th 2004, Maura spoke on the phone with her older sister Kathleen, and this was while she was on duty at campus security. They discussed Kathleen's relationship with her fiance. She was having problems with him, so that's apparently what they were talking about on the phone. At around 10:30 p.m, while she was still on shift, Maura reportedly broke down in tears. Her supervisor arrived at her desk. Maura was, quote, completely zoned out, no reaction at all, she was unresponsive, end quote. The supervisor escorted Maura back to her dorm room at around 1:20 in the morning. When she asked Maura what was wrong, Maura just said 2 words, quote, my sister, end quote. The contents of the call remained unknown until October 2017, when Kathleen publicly explained the conversation. So no one knew until like 7 years later what they spoke about. 7 years? 13 years. I can't do math. Kathleen, who was a recovering alcoholic, she'd been released from a rehab clinic earlier that evening, and on the way home her fiance took her straight to a liquor store, which caused her to have like a breakdown, obviously, as you would. So this is why she was on the phone with Maura, I think, telling her like what had happened. What a dick, right? Like, you've literally just come out of rehab and he's like, yeah, let's go get some booze. Like, I can't imagine like how that must have felt. On Saturday, February the 7th, Maura's father Fred arrived in Amherst. I found it really hard to say that. He told investigators he and Maura went car shopping that afternoon, and they later went to dinner with a friend of Maura's. Maura dropped her dad off at his motel room, and she borrowed his car to go to a party on campus. She arrived there at 10:30 p.m. and at 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, the February the 8th, she left the party. At 3:30 a.m, on the way to her father's motel, she struck a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley, causing nearly $10,000 worth of damage to her dad's car. The responding officer wrote an accident report, but there's no documentation of a sobriety test being conducted, so we don't actually know if she was drunk driving or not. He didn't do a sobriety test, or if he did, he didn't write it down, so we don't know. Maura was driven to her dad's motel and she stayed in his room for the rest of the morning. At 4:49 a.m. there was a cell phone call placed to her boyfriend from her dad's phone. Participants and content of the phone call are not known, so I don't know if he answered, or if he did answer we don't know what was said, or if she spoke to her boyfriend, or I don't know. No one knows. So later on Sunday morning, Fred, her dad, learned that the damage to his car was going to be covered by his insurance. So he rented a car, he dropped Maura off at university, and he left for Connecticut. So I'm guessing he lived in Connecticut and had come to visit her in Amherst. At 11:30 that night, Fred called Maura and told her to obtain accident forms from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. They agreed to talk again on Monday night to discuss the forms and fill out the insurance claim over the phone. I don't know what's going on with my brows, but they're not cooperating today. Anyway, on the afternoon of Monday, February the 9th, before she left the university campus, she emailed her professors and her work supervisor saying that she was taking a week off due to a death in the family, but according to her family there'd not been a death. So they were a bit confused why she would say that, because no one had died. At 7:27 p.m, a local woman reported a car accident on a sharp corner of Route 112 adjacent to her home. A passing motorist who also lived nearby stopped at the scene and he asked the woman driving the car if she needed any help. She declined and said that she'd already called the roadside assistance. Upon arriving home several minutes later, the motorist reported the incident to the emergency services. At 7:46 p.m, law enforcement arrived at the scene, but the woman had disappeared. So police managed to trace this vehicle back to Maura. So this is the vehicle that's crashed on this corner. They managed to trace it back to her. So they originally thought that she might have wanted to disappear on purpose. Obviously she's just crashed a car, and I don't know if they knew, but she'd obviously crashed a car the other day as well, her dad's car. So they thought maybe she just didn't want to get in trouble with the police, and obviously she had this like stolen credit card thing, so you know, maybe she just wanted to run away, she didn't want to get in trouble. This speculation was based on her travel preparations, but she'd not said anything to her friends or family, and there was no obvious signs of foul play, so there wasn't like any blood or anything, that no one had like tried to get in the car, or there was no like struggle, basically no signs of struggle anywhere. So after midnight on Monday, February the 9th, so this is before she left the university, so this is like obviously Sunday night going into Monday morning, Maura had used her personal computer to search MapQuest directions to the Berkshires and Burlington in Vermont. The first reported contact Maura had with anyone on that day, February the 9th, was at 1 p.m, and she emailed her boyfriend, quote, "I love you more, stud. I got your messages, but honestly I didn't feel like talking to much of anyone. I promise to call you today though. Love you, Maura," end quote. She also made a phone call inquiring about renting a condo at the same condo association in Bartlett, New Hampshire, that her family had vacationed at in the past. The telephone records indicated that the call lasted 3 minutes. The owner did not rent the condo to Maura, so she wasn't going to this condo because they'd not rented it to her, so we still don't know where she was planning on going. At 1:13 p.m, Maura called a fellow nursing student, but we don't know why she called her. There's no record of that phone conversation, so I don't know if the student had answered or not. I was watching a documentary about this the other day though. There was this journalist girl who's trying to like retrace Maura's steps and figure out what happened to her, and she said that she interviewed this girl who was a nursing student. I don't know if this is the phone call that maybe they couldn't find, but she'd borrowed some clothes from this girl and wanted to drop them off, and later on in that evening she'd knocked on the door, but the student was like asleep, so she'd heard the knock but she was like, oh, I don't want to get up and answer it. And then the next morning she'd found the clothes that Maura had borrowed, so I mean she could have like stopped and spoke to Maura if she'd wake up, which like, can you imagine feeling like that after knowing now she's gone missing? At 1:24 p.m, Maura emailed a work supervisor of the nursing school faculty saying that she would be out of town for a week due to a death in the family. So this is what she's telling everyone, that someone's died in the family, she's going to be away for a week. So obviously we know now that that isn't true. She also said that she would contact them when she returned. So she's like planting the seed to everyone that she's just going to be away for a bit and that she's going to come back and that she's going to contact them when she comes back. So I don't really know. That seems really odd to me. Because no one's died, so like why is she saying that someone's died, you know? At 2:05 p.m, Moira called a number which provides recorded information about booking hotels in Stowe, Vermont. The call lasted approximately 5 minutes. At 2:18 p.m, she phoned her boyfriend and left a voice message promising him that they would talk later, and this phone call ended after 1 minute. In her car, Moira had packed clothing, toiletry, college textbooks and her birth control pills. When her room was searched later, campus police discovered most of her belongings packed in boxes and the art had been taken off the walls. It's not clear whether Moira had packed them that day, but police at the time assumed that she had packed them between Sunday night and Monday morning. On top of the boxes was a printed email to Moira's boyfriend that indicated that there was trouble in the relationship, so not everything was rosy as everyone thought. Around 3:30 p.m, she drove off campus in her black 1996 Saturn sedan, and classes at the university had been cancelled due to a snowstorm that day, so there wasn't anyone around really. At 3:40 p.m, Moira withdrew $280 from an ATM. CCTV showed that she was alone. At a nearby liquor store, Moira purchased about $40 worth of alcohol, including Bailey's Irish Cream, Kahlua, vodka and a box of wine. Security footage shows that she was alone when she made these purchases as well, so there's no one with her on CCTV when she's took the money out or bought the booze. At some point during the day, she also picked up her accident report forms from when she crashed her dad's car at the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles. So to me, it doesn't seem like she's like planning on like disappearing herself, you know? If you were gonna like run off, why would you take, first of all, your birth control pills? And why would you bother picking up the accident report forms if you're gonna just disappear, you know? Very odd. Moira then left Amherst between 4 and 5 p.m. We presume it was via the Interstate 91 heading north, but we don't know. This is just what they've picked up from, I'm assuming, where her car was left, and they think this is the direction that she was going. She called to check her voicemail at 4:37 p.m, and this was the last recorded use of her cell phone. To date, there is no indication that she had informed anyone of where she was going or any evidence that she'd actually decided on a location, because she'd rang about hotels in like different areas, so we still don't know if she decided like actually where she was going to. A Woodsville, New Hampshire resident heard a loud thump outside her home. Through her window, she could see a car up against the snowbank along Route 112, which is known as the Wild Ammonoosuc Road. Okay. The car pointed west on an eastbound side of the road, so it was facing oncoming traffic. She phoned the Grafton County Sheriff's Department at 7:27 to report the accident. According to the 911 log, the woman claimed to have seen a man smoking a cigarette inside the car. However, she later stated that she had not seen anyone smoking a cigarette, but rather it had appeared to be like a cell phone light or like a red light glowing from inside the car. At about the same time, another neighbour saw the car as well, and he saw someone walking around the vehicle. And then she witnessed a third neighbour pull up alongside the vehicle, so someone stopped to speak to Moira and see if she needed any help. The neighbour that pulled up was a school bus driver returning home. He noticed the young woman was not bleeding or visibly injured, but she was cold and shivering apparently. He offered to phone for help. She asked him not to call the police. One police report said that she pleaded for him not to call the police, and she said that she'd already called the AA. I think it's called AAA over there, but I'm just going to say AA because that's what we call it. But roadside assistance basically. The AA have no record of this phone call ever taking place. The person that stopped to help Moira knew that there was no cell phone signal in the area, so he was a bit like, well, I know you haven't called them because there's no signal around here. But anyway, he called the police when he got home to tell them about the accident. His call was received by the Sheriff's Department at 7:43 p.m. He was unable to see Moira's car while he made the call, but he did notice several cars pass on the road before the police arrived. So he noticed other cars going past, but he couldn't see Moira's car from his house. Okay, I look like a ghost. I need to fix this. Another local resident who was driving home from work claims that she passed by the scene at 7:37 p.m. and she saw a police SUV parked face to face with Moira's car. She pulled over briefly, but she didn't see anyone inside or outside the cars, and she decided to continue home. This witness claim contradicts the official police log, which has Haverhill police arriving to the scene 9 minutes after that. So she apparently saw this police car, but no one in the car or around the car, and no one in or around Moira's car, and she just decided to carry on because she just assumed that the police were taking care of it, but the actual police didn't get there until like 9 minutes after that. Suspicious. According to the official police log, at 7:46 a Haverhill police officer arrived at the scene. No one was inside or around Moira's car. The car had impacted a tree, which had damaged the driver's side of the vehicle. It severely damaged the left headlight, and it pushed the car's radiator into the fan, which meant it was inoperable, so she wouldn't have been able to drive off with what had happened to the car. The car's windshield was cracked on the driver's side and both airbags had been deployed, so it was a pretty bad crash. The car was locked as well when the policemen arrived. I don't know, that's just weird. Has she locked the car after she went, or I don't know. It mustn't have been locked when it crashed, because otherwise she'd have still been in the car, right? So she must have locked it, which is weird. Inside and outside the car, the police officer discovered red stains that appeared to be like red wine, so I'm assuming this is the wine that she bought from the shop earlier on. So inside the car, the police officer found an empty beer bottle and a damaged bottle of wine, or a damaged box of wine, and this was on the rear seat. So in addition to this, he also found the AA card that was issued to Moira, the blank accident forms, some gloves, CDs, makeup, diamond jewellery, driving directions to Burlington, Vermont, Moira's favourite stuffed animal, and Not Without Peril, which is a book about mountain climbing in the White Mountains. Missing were Moira's debit card, credit cards and cell phone, none of which has ever been located or used since she disappeared. The police later reported that some of the bottles of liquor that she bought were also missing as well. Journalist Joe McGee, writing for the Quincy, Massachusetts Patriot Ledger, summarised the incident. Quote, "At a hairpin turn, she went off the road. The car hit a tree. At that point, a person came along who was driving a bus. It was a neighbour. He asked her if she needed help. She refused. About 10 minutes later, police showed up to the scene and MAURA MURRAY was gone." End quote. My brows are just not cooperating today and it's really annoying me. Between 8 and 8:30 p.m, a contractor returning home from Franconia saw a young person moving quickly on foot eastbound on Route 112, about 4 to 5 miles east of where Moira's vehicle was discovered. He noted that the young person was wearing jeans, a dark coat and a light coloured hood. He didn't report it to police immediately due to his own confusion of dates, only discovering 3 months later, when reviewing his work records, that he had spotted the young person the same night that Moira disappeared. So at first, when it first came out on the news that she disappeared, he didn't think anything of it because he didn't realise it was the same day. So it took him 3 months to figure out that it was Moira he possibly saw that night, which is a bit frustrating because, you know, that could have like really helped at the time. The responding officer to the crash and the bus driver who reported it drove around the area searching for Moira, because I mean it's only been like what 10 minutes since someone saw her to when the police showed up, so it's like you would think that someone can't go that far in that short amount of time. So they drove around the area trying to find where she could have gone. Just before 8 p.m, EMS and a fire truck arrived to clear the scene. By 8:49 p.m, the car had been towed to a local garage. At about 9:30 p.m, the responding officer left. A rag believed to have been part of Moira's emergency roadside kit was discovered stuffed into the muffler pipe of the car. Authorities would later refer to Moira as simply missing. At 12 p.m. the next day, almost 24 hours after the last confirmed sighting of her. So it took 24 hours for them to say that she'd officially gone missing. At 12:36 p.m. the following day, this was February the 10th, a be on the lookout report for Moira was issued. She was reported as wearing a dark coat, jeans and a black backpack. A voicemail was left on Fred Murray's home answering machine at 3:20 p.m, stating that her car had been found abandoned. He was working out of state and he didn't receive the call. so that's why it was left as a voicemail rather than him actually answering. At 5 p.m, Moira's older sister contacted their dad to tell them of the situation. He was then contacted by Haverhill Police Department and was told that if Moira was not reported safe by the following morning, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department would start a search. At 5:17 p.m, Moira was first referred to as missing by the Haverhill Police. On February the 11th, Moira's dad arrived before dawn in Haverhill. At 8 a.m, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department, the Murray family and others begin to search for Moira. A police dog tracked the scent from one of Moira's gloves 100 yards east from where her vehicle had been discovered but lost the scent. This suggested to police that she'd left the area in another car. At 5 p.m, Moira's boyfriend and his parents arrived in Haverhill. Her boyfriend was interrogated in private and then was joined by his parents to question him. At 7 p.m, the police said that they believed Moira came to the area either to run away or commit suicide, but her family didn't think that this was the case. Moira's boyfriend had turned off his cell phone during the flight to Haverhill. At some point he received a voicemail that he believed to be the sound of Moira sobbing. The call was traced to a calling card issued to the American Red Cross. So I don't know if this is actually Moira, but someone rang him and left a voicemail of them crying. He thinks it was her, which is a bit weird. Yeah, freaky. On February the 12th, Moira's dad and her boyfriend held an evening press conference in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and the next day the first press coverage was published. At 3:05 p.m, the police reported Moira might be headed to the Kangamachus Highway area. She was listed as endangered and potentially suicidal. The police report also stated Moira was intoxicated at the crash site, although the bus driver who had stopped to help her said she didn't seem impaired. The Haverhill police chief said, quote, "Our concern is that she's upset or suicidal," end quote. A week after Moira's disappearance, her dad and boyfriend were interviewed by CNN's American Morning. Moira's family expanded their search into Vermont, dismayed that authorities there had not been informed of her disappearance. So obviously she's got these like directions to Vermont, but no one there had been informed that she'd been missing. So, you know, they've lost valuable time because she might have gone there, but no one there was looking for her. Although missing person cases are normally handled by local and state police, the FBI joined the investigation 10 days after she disappeared. They interviewed the family from Massachusetts, and the Haverhill police chief announced that the search was now nationwide. 10 days after her disappearance, New Hampshire Fish and Game Department conducted a second ground and air search using a helicopter with a thermal imaging camera, tracking dogs and cadaver dogs just in case, unfortunately, that she had passed. Moira's older sister discovered a pair of ripped white women's underwear lying in the snow on a secluded trail near the French Pond Road on February 26, but DNA tests found that the underwear didn't belong to Moira, so they have no trace of her whatsoever at any point. At the end of February, the police returned the items found in Moira's car to her family. On March 2nd, the family checked out of their motel, exhausted from the search. Fred Murray returned nearly every weekend to continue searching, so her dad went back literally every weekend to carry on looking for her, bless him. In April, Haverhill police informed him of complaints of trespassing on private property, which, like, whoever complained, it's like, really? Like, he's looking for his missing daughter. Like, wouldn't you be the same? I would. I'd be like, I don't care if it's your house, I'm looking for someone. That was a bit... There was a disappearance of a girl called Brianna Maitland in March 2004 in Montgomery, Vermont, which is 66 miles away from Moira's last sighting in Woodsville. This drew a lot of comparisons. I am going to do Brianna's case next week because it is, like, very similar to Moira's, so we will go over that next week because, yeah, it's very weird and it's, like, around the same time, so... yeah, strange. Maybe they are linked, who knows. The police didn't think there are any links, but when I go over the case next week, you'll see why I think that there's definitely something fishy there. In April and again in June, New Hampshire and Vermont police dismissed any connection between Moira and Brianna's case. In a press release, they stated they believed, quote, "Moira was headed for an unknown destination and may have accepted a ride in order to continue to that location," end quote. Adding that they discovered that no evidence of a crime had been committed, and they dismissed any possibility of a serial killer being involved. So they basically just was like, she's gone, which is like, you know, they haven't even tried really. But they're kind of like dismissing like any possibility that someone else is involved. They kind of just think she like went off on her own, which is like, okay, I get why. because she had like all her belongings with her and stuff. But you know, they lived like in a cold area. It wasn't like warm, and if she was going somewhere, I mean, yeah, maybe she did hitch a ride with someone, but like, I don't know, I feel like she would have like informed her boyfriend or her family, you know? Doesn't add up to me. My brows are really going through it today. On July 1st, police retrieved the items that were found in Maura's car from her family for forensic analysis. On July 13th, a 1 mile radius search was performed by nearly 100 searchers, including state troopers, rescue personnel and volunteers. This is the 4th search around the crash area that's been performed, but the first search without any snow on the ground. Authorities were most interested in locating the black backpack that Maura had in her possession, but that wasn't found in the car, so they think that she had it on her person when she left. Police stated that the search discovered nothing conclusive. In late 2004, a man allegedly gave Maura's dad a rusty stained knife that belonged to the man's brother, who had a criminal past and lived less than a mile from where Maura's car was discovered. His brother and his brother's girlfriend, so the man that gave this knife, his brother and his brother's girlfriend were said to have acted strangely after the disappearance, and the man's brother claimed he believed the knife had been used to kill Maura. Several days after the knife was given to Maura's dad, the man's brother allegedly scrapped his Volvo. This is so strange. Family members of the man who had gave the knife to Fred claimed that he had made up the story in order to get some reward money in the investigation, and that he had a history of drug use. So unfortunately, they don't think that he was telling the truth or that his brother had anything to do with Maura's disappearance. He was just trying to get money for drugs, which is a shame. In 2005, Fred Murray petitioned New Hampshire Governor Craig Benson for help in the search, and he appeared on the Montel Williams show in November 2004 to publicise the case. On February 9, 2005, which is the 1-year anniversary of Maura's disappearance, a service was held where the car was found, and her dad met briefly with New Hampshire Governor John Lynch. In late 2005, Fred Murray filed suit against several law enforcement agencies with the aim of seeing files on the case. On November 1st, 2005, a user named Tom Davies logged into a message board called Not Without Peril, which is the name of the book that Maura had about travelling in the mountains. This is also like a message board that people use to discuss the case of Maura's disappearance, so it was like a forum, I guess. He claimed to have seen a black backpack. I can't speak. What the hell is going on with me? A black backpack behind a restroom at Pemigewasset Overlook. Some of these names, I always find the most difficult things to pronounce, honestly. Around 30 miles east of Woodsville on Route 112. Senior Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Strelzin, I can't speak, sorry, stated that law enforcement were aware of the backpack, but they didn't disclose whether it had been taken for forensic testing. So apparently the police know about it, but we don't know whether they actually did anything with it, which is like, I feel like the police on this whole case have just been kind of like, you know, it is what it is. They haven't really tried to like look for her properly, you know. If it wasn't for the family, I don't think like they would have bothered. The New Hampshire League of Investigators, which is 10 retired police officers and detectives, and the Molly Bish Foundation started working on the case in 2006. Tom Shamshak, a former police chief and a member of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, said, quote, "It appears that this is something beyond a mere missing persons case. Something ominous could have happened here," end quote. The Arkansas group Let's Bring Them Home offered a $75,000 reward in 2007 for any information that could solve her disappearance. In October 2006, volunteers led a 2-day search within a few miles of where Maura's car was found. In the closet of an A-frame house, approximately 1 mile from the crash site, cadaver dogs allegedly went bonkers, possibly identifying the presence of human remains. The house had formerly been the residence of the man implicated by his brother, who had given Fred the rusty knife in 2004. The plot thickens. This house, where these dogs were going crazy, apparently belonged to the guy of the brother who gave the knife. Does that make sense? So it does make sense that that guy had that knife. Maybe he was telling the truth and people just thought because he was a druggie that he was lying and sort of like dismissed it. A sample of carpet from the home was sent to New Hampshire State Police, but the results were never released to the public, so we don't know what was on the piece of carpet. they've never made the results public. In July 2008, the volunteers led another 2-day search through wooded areas in Haverhill. The group consisted of dog teams and licensed private investigators. Moira's case was one of the many cited by proponents of a statewide cold case unit for New Hampshire in 2009. Her case was subsequently added to the newly established cold case unit later that year. In 2010, Fred Murray publicly criticised the police investigation for treating the disappearance as a missing person case and not a criminal matter, and called on the FBI to join the investigation. Jeffrey Strelzin said in February 2009 that the investigation was still active, saying, quote, "We don't know if Moira is a victim, but the state is treating it as a possible homicide. It may be a missing persons case, but it's being handled as a criminal investigation," end quote. In 2014, the 10-year anniversary of Moira's disappearance, Strelzin said that, quote, "We haven't had any credible sightings of Moira since the night she disappeared," end quote. In an article published in the New York Daily News on the 10th anniversary of his daughter's disappearance, it was reported that Fred Murray believed that Moira was dead and had been abducted the night of her disappearance. On February 9th, 2017, this is the 13th anniversary of her disappearance, her dad reiterated his belief that she had been killed, as well as suspicions about the house nearby that the dogs had gone like crazy over, stating, quote, "That's my daughter, I do believe," end quote. That's so sad. In early April, excavation was done within the basement of the house. Fred Murray had previously wanted to search the home, but the owners at the time didn't cooperate. Following the sale of the home, the new owners allowed several searches, but the excavation conducted in early April found absolutely nothing other than what appears to be a piece of pottery or old piping. But really weird that the old owners didn't want them to search there, right? Moira's disappearance has been cited as the first crime mystery of a social media age and generated speculation from the media and the public, specifically on the internet in online forums and message boards. So when she disappeared, it was like literally Facebook was like days old, so social media was only just becoming a thing, and it generated a lot of like stimulant online. A lot of people were speaking about it online, so yeah, it was like the first like case that was on social media. Writing for Boston Magazine in 2014, Bill Jensen said, quote, "Now, at least online, it often seems that there's no such thing as a cold case. But when Maura Murray disappeared, the social web was in its infancy. There was no YouTube or no Twitter. On the day Maura went missing, Facebook was 5 days old, and so you can read the history of her case as a parable about the evolution of online sleuthing," end quote. In 2005, active discussion of Maura's disappearance was documented on websleuths.com, and in 2007, Facebook and MySpace pages were created dedicated to helping find her. Okay, so I know that was a bit of a long one. There's a lot of information being belted at you there, but there's a lot of like mysterious circumstances that led up to her disappearing that I feel like she didn't just like, I don't know, it's so odd to me because she crashed her dad's car, then went to a party, then crashed her dad's car, had trouble with this like stolen credit card thing, so then she was like, I don't really want to get in more trouble because I'm gonna go to jail, and then crashed again the day she disappeared and then just vanished, and like it's such a short time frame. It was like 7 minutes from someone seeing her to the police arriving, so I don't know, it seems really odd to me. And then but if she did go like of her own accord, I feel like she would have got in touch with her family. I don't know, there's a lot to unpack. It's a very, very, very strange case, and the fact that she'd claimed to call AA, but the guy was like, well, I know there's no signal here, so you haven't, but she didn't want any help. Like, yeah, there's just a lot of weird circumstances up to her disappearing, but I don't really know what I think. I feel like she did go off on her own, but I feel like something did happen to her like after she crashed her car. Maybe she like hitched a ride, and unfortunately it was someone who, you know, did something to her or killed her, but there's never been any body or any trace of her, so very, very, very strange one. But let me know what you think happened below. The most realistic is probably that she got abducted and killed, but who knows. It is very similar to the Brianna Maitland case, which I'll be doing next week. They are very similar and like in similar areas, so that's what we're going to be doing next time, just because we have kind of mentioned it in this video, so it will make sense for me to do that next time, so you guys can see like the similarities and why people thought it might have been the same person involved in both. But yeah, that's what gets me so like hooked on these cases, is like the unknown. Like anything could have happened to her, and we don't know. That's just like really fascinating to me. So many different theories. But yes, let me know what you think below. We'll be doing the Brianna Maitland case next week, and thank you for watching these videos. If you do enjoy them, make sure you like and subscribe for me, and I'll see you next Monday for another missing person case. Bye bye.